We launch the attack in 10 minutes, people. And anybody who doesn't fall in behind me will be shot on sight. Any questions? No, I do not do gourmet cooking. I do not talk in rhyming sentences. And don't you dare call me Bubba. Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here. We're getting ready to conclude Pretender Month. We're taking a look at the last of the Ultra Pretenders, the 1989 Decepticon Ground Forces Commander, Roadblock. Roadblock, like Skyhammer from last week, would only be available in 1989. They'd be discontinued for 1990, and we would not get a replacement for him. Roadblock, of course, is a popular name over at Hasbro, as it was most famously used in their opposite toy line, G.I. Joe, where Roadblock was one of the machine gunners of the G.I. Joe team. In the cartoon, he was presented as being able to talk in weird rhyming sentences for some reason, but most famously was known as a gourmet cook among the team from his personal experience. He wanted to be a chef and was somehow convinced that the army could help train him. So naturally, you can bet the Joe team enjoys his cooking over more traditional military cooking. The slang dropped at the end of our opening, Bubba, actually comes from prototypes done on the original Roadblock toy, as apparently that was one of the chosen code names for Roadblock before they settled on it. However, Larry Hama, who was behind a lot of the bios for the characters, heavily insisted that they not use Bubba, due to it being probably perceived as racial or offensive. Of course, Roadblock would also gain more notoriety by being seen in the last live-action movie, G.I. Joe Retaliation, where he was portrayed by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. But we're not here to talk about the G.I. Joe guy. We're here to talk about the later Transformer to gain that name. And being on quite the opposite, since this Roadblock is a Decepticon. Like Skyhammer that we reviewed last week, Roadblock suffers from gold plastic syndrome, but more of it is concentrated in the robot than on the other two pieces. So, let's separate him out and take a look at everything. Let's take a look here at Roadblock the robot. And of course, I also want to give a shout out to my brother, Cyclonus150, for donating this toy to be reviewed. Anyway, this figure's not exactly in the best of shape, but it's still intact, so it just suffers from a lot of play wear, since as you can see, the right arm here is very, very loose. As you can see from the articulation, he can rotate it all the way around. This arm at least hold it up. Whoop. Spoke too soon. He can raise his leg up all the way up like so. And he can also bend his ankle like so. So he does have about the standard articulation that you would expect of a pretender of his size. But again, since he has quite a bit of gold plastic, you definitely need to handle this toy with a lot of care. Now, to transform Roadblock into his alternate mode, we're going to start by carefully removing his gun from him. We swing up his arms, try to hold him there as best we can. We're going to flip down his feet now instead of doing it later like the instructions recommend. And then we fold the legs all the way onto his chest. And then flip him over. Then we mount his gun on top of him. And he becomes an armored assault vehicle. He's basically a half-track. As we can see when we get up close, he does have real wheels on the front, but all he has in the back is these fake treads. And no wheels on them, so I don't expect him to... Nope, he doesn't roll very good at all. So, unfortunately, that's a mark against him on this. The armored vehicle mode does look good, and it certainly is a little more convincing than Skyhammer's from last week, but it's a major disappointment you can't get him to roll any better. Now we're going to take a look at how to load the robot onto the shell here. But first we'll take a look at the exterior shell so you can all get a good look at it. You can see, unlike Skyhammer's, Roadblock is definitely a ground vehicle. It does have a nice battering ram here on the front of the vehicle. It does move, so you can raise it up a bit if you would like. But I will warn you right now, this is one of the more fragile things on this toy, because there are many shells out there that have this barricade broken off of it. Got a nice little driver's compartment in here. This toy could use a good dusting. Got some empty post holes on the top for mounting the weapons. And of course we got the adjustable turret here in the back. We'll work that out in a little bit. Got some nice big tires here along the sides. And just like with Skyhammer last week, we have some nice vehicular detail on the underside. So like I mentioned last week, for those of you who weren't here for it, this was done during a time when Hasbro was kind of cutting this out of the G.I. Joe line, so it's quite a surprise to see that we were getting some here on the Transformers. But at any rate, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take these black guns and we connect them into the holes here along the sides of the vehicle. We're going to raise the big gun here in the middle and mount the little robot's gun in there. We can also bring this thing up to make it a full turret. And then back here in the back, there's a couple of holes here, and they should line up with there's a couple of posts here, excuse me. And they should line up pretty well with the holes in his feet. But again, be gentle since his feet are made of the gold plastic. And there we have it. He's mounted on top at the gunnery station. And how does the big shell roll? Not bad. It could do better, but hard to say if that's how it always has been or if it's just age affecting this toy. Now we'll take a look at the interior shell and transform it. Of course, like it's typical with a Decepticon, we have a monster face underneath the visor. It's a little hard to see due to the black paint, but he is pretty ugly in there. As for articulation, he's actually somewhat more improved than Skyhammer. We can actually move the arm at the shoulder all the way like so, but Roadblock also has a couple of joints in the elbows. So he's got one right there, and then second one like that, so he can fully bend his arm up to touch his shoulders. So it's a considerable improvement. He also does have articulation at the knees, but it makes his knees bend the wrong way. So we won't look at that too closely here. At any rate, to transform him into the alternate mode, first thing we do is we put his arms up in an I surrender pose. Then we fold out his wings. And we're going to go down here. We're going to fold down his feet. And then swing his legs up at the side. Bring him up all the way like so. Then we turn him over. And we will bend his arms at the elbows both ways so they come up on top. Just exactly like that. They should look a little more equal, but this one over here is a little bit on the stiff side. There we go, that's better. And we can just fold up Roadblock a bit and gently slide him inside. Try to keep his arms out like so. And of course, we can mount the guns into the shell's hands here next to him. And there we are. We have another jet mode, and this one actually looks pretty darn good if you ask me. It does look wicked and evil, which suits its master well. And it does swoosh pretty good. So, all in all, this one isn't too bad. I almost like it a little more than I like Skyhammer's. Now let's take a look at Roadblock's accessories before I put him all together inside the shell. We'll start with his gun, which the instructions describe as a dual blaster. And then as you can see, it's a pretty flat gun too. And of course, on the one side, it's got a large post for connecting into bigger things. And a small one on the opposite end to hold in the robot's hands. And here we have the one part that's not listed on the instructions. This is the visor for the shell. Like Skyhammer's, it's made of slightly soft plastic. And it basically clips on to the side of the face with these two holes here. They are quite commonly missing on loose samples, so you do have to keep an eye out for them. And then lastly, we have two of these laser guns. Nothing really special about them. But that's all the loose parts. Now we get down to the fun part, putting this into that and then into the tank. Alright, to start with Roadblock, we want to keep his arms down like he's already got. And then we also want to fold down his feet, like so. And that gets him ready. We turn the shell around to the back side. We'll shift the wings a little bit. And then it should raise up here in the back, just like that. And then we just wiggle him inside. And we want to do this very, very gently. So you'll have to bend him at the hips a little bit to get him to go in. Bend his hips slightly, and there he goes. He's in. And then very gently close the shell on him. And there we go. He's secured. Fold the wings back. Then, of course, if you're ready to play with him, just mount the guns into his hands, and the shell is ready to go into battle. Now, to get him ready to go into the shell itself, of course, we take the guns out. They say straighten the arms, and you come back and you fold the wings flat against his backside. And we bring the tank out, and we should be able to just pop the green shell up, open up the door, and step right in. Of course, we're also going to want to fold his feet down to make it easier to put him in. Just lay him in. Make sure he's all the way flat on the floor, face down, of course. And then we just lower the shell. Something else they don't tell you on the instructions. You need to fold down this tail fin here. Just kind of Hasbro, if you're going to make these toys complex, make sure you're telling us everything. Relay him back in. And fold the shell down until it closes on. Then, of course, reattach all the guns back onto him. And there we have it. Roadblock is totally secure inside his shell and ready to rumble. And now we'll take a look at Roadblock's instructions. The instructions here aren't in the best of shape because on one side they're torn, but it is what we've got, so we'll roll with it. Right up here, it starts with the picture of him in the interior shell, and then the robot standing on the tank. Of course, they list it as a tank. In reality, it should be an armored car, because tanks traditionally have treads. We start the same way as Skyhammer. How to outfit the outer shell. Arm the robot. Transform the robot. And then how to hide him inside the interior shell. Arm the shell. Transform the shell. Which is quite complicated on him. And then how to hide the figure inside the tank. And then how to put the stickers on. They don't seem to show any of the additional stuff because they ran out of space. Now we'll take a look here at Roadblock's tech spec. It's all done up predominantly in purple to show he's a Decepticon. And it has all the shell modes on here. We have the tank outer shell, the jet mode, the inner shell, the robot, and his half-track mode. It gives his name as Roadblock. His function is Ground Forces Commander. His motto is, to show fear is to admit defeat. The malevolent master of mayhem crushes everything in his path with his studded iron steel wheels. The front runner for the Decepticon army and a locomotive of destruction. Armed with corrosive rust bombs that eat away enemy armor. Also equipped with high-intensity heat generators and exterior that provide thermal force field, infrared tracking and navigation systems, and large-scale fuel capacity ideal for remote-controlled reconnaissance missions. So this implies the shell can be controlled remotely. Armed with 2 proton shatter cannons, and hydraulic battle ram equipped with acetylene cutters. Outer shell transforms to subsonic wind cruiser armed with 2 plasma blasters. So Roadblock comes to bear with it's a battle. We take a look at his stats, and at least they're a little more varied. They're still a little on the high side, but at least they're better varied than Skyhammer's. He gives his strength as 8, his intelligence is 6, his speed is 3, his endurance and rank are 9, his courage is 10, his firepower is 8, and his skill is 7. So, aside from being pretty slow, Roadblock is very powerful. Now we get down to my thoughts. What do I think of him? Again, like Skyhammer, Roadblock comes out at a time when the tech specs say a lot, but don't really tell much to go with it. You don't learn enough about the character. Everything that it talks about is all the gear that's on the shell, not the character. The More Than Meets the Eye guides describe Roadblock as a very abusive commander who does show no fear in any situation. If Roadblock says he's charging into battle and he expects you to be behind him, you will run right behind him into battle. Because if he catches you not charging into battle, he will do things probably worse than just straight out kill you. He will make you suffer, then kill you, then probably make you suffer again until he's satisfied with it. So he's a very tough and brutal commander. But when you consider a lot of the ways many of the Decepticons were portrayed, especially in the cartoon, it's nice to see one that's actually a little more intimidating and fearsome. So, Roadblock is certainly one of the better Decepticon leaders out there. As a toy, Roadblock's not too bad. I mean, granted, my example here isn't exactly the best, but we're going to work with it anyways. The robot mode, it's not bad, but I can understand a lot of people's concerns with it. It is made of the gold plastic, and unfortunately, with the way his legs are set up on it, the bar for his hips is going to break very easily. So, I would almost definitely suggest you keep Roadblock in a specific area and never mess with him, because he is likely going to break very easily. His alternate mode, it's nice that it's something different, but it's still terrible due to the fact that there's not even any wheels in his legs to allow him to roll anywhere. So that suffers on it very greatly. The inner shell, it's definitely an improvement over many of the others that had been released. By having the dual joints in the elbow, that gives it some incredible posability, more so than what you would have expected on a regular Pretender shell. The jet mode on it, it's not bad. It actually looks a little bit better visually than the one for Skyhammer. So it has that going for it. The tank outer shell, it's pretty good as well. The fact that it doesn't suffer from the gold plastic as badly as Skyhammer's is definitely a plus in its favor. The only problem you have to worry about is the battering ram here on the front of it, as it's quite commonly seen broken and missing on loose samples. All in all, I think Roadblock definitely deserves to be one of those few toys that's in the top tier. The Ultra Pretenders weren't exactly the most popular toys out there, but this one certainly makes a little more effort, a little more of a concentrated effort to come off looking better and actually being a better toy, all in all. So definitely, if you can find a decent Roadblock in good condition, definitely add this toy to your collection. As the name Roadblock certainly has a legacy at Hasbro, and while he's the only Transformer to carry the name, he carries it well. Anyway, that concludes my review of the Decepticon Ultra Pretender Roadblock. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you like this video, drop me a thumbs up here on YouTube. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button to join our ranks. And ring the notification bell, even though the notification system on YouTube is broken at the moment. But you can always check out my homepage on YouTube to make sure I see if I've posted new content. Also, please consider sharing your thoughts about Roadblock in the comments down below. This is Sparkster1701 saying that while Pretender Month is over, I do have a special Transformer that's going to be posted on Halloween. You don't want to miss it, so I'll catch you later.